Hello everyone and welcome back to Very Cold Lasagna, your filthy casual place for all the filthy casual takes on the world of sports. I'm DylanLasagna and Merry Christmas to all from Very Cold Lasagna, and I hope you're enjoying it. I hope you're enjoying all the Christmas gifts that you're getting or receiving, or spreading the joy to others on this fine Christmas. And in general, just happy holidays to everyone on this fine day. So anyway, if you happen to catch this, whenever you're watching, we're here to talk about my San Francisco 49ers as they took on the Washington Commanders on a Christmas Eve Saturday in Week 16. So let's talk about it. Let's get right into it. So, for both of these teams, they were coming into this matchup. The 49ers, 10-4, already have clinched the division, the NFC West, in their last matchup against the Seattle Seahawks on a Thursday night, only on Amazon Prime Video for $15 a month. So they were coming into this game. They were still about a game back behind the Minnesota Vikings, who earlier in the day had just beaten the New York Giants in another very close game on a last-second 61-yard field goal by their kicker, Greg Joseph, to keep the number 2 seed in their tight grasp. So somehow, some way, Minnesota finding ways to win and keeping that number 2 seed away from the 49ers. So regardless, the Niners were still coming to this game. They're still playing for seeding, even though they can't really go lower than the number 3 seed because the Tampa Bay Bucks are god awful. But they're still aspiring to go for that second seed so they can have 2 home playoff games rather than get that one playoff game and then have to go to Minnesota to play the Vikings. Meanwhile, for the Washington Commanders, they were coming off a not so great game against the New York Giants in prime time on Sunday night. Taylor Heinicke, 2 costly fumbles, especially one getting strip sacked by Kayvon Thibodeau, led to a touchdown, and an overall not so great performance. So they need to get an upset win over San Francisco, and the odds, sure, they were not great, but they got some help by other teams because the Lions lost earlier in the day, the Seahawks lost earlier in the day, and the Giants also lost. So a little help to their cause going into this matchup against the 49ers. But they really needed Taylor Heinicke to have a bounce-back performance. Otherwise, there were reports going out earlier in the day also that if Taylor Heinicke continued to struggle, especially with the turnovers, Carson Wentz could come into this game and replace him. So this was a must-have game for not just Taylor Heinicke, but for the Commanders in general. Also coming into this game, Chase Young was expected to be back, but so was also Javon Kinlaw, also expected to be back as well. So that being said, in regards to this game, it was, as I expected, tighter than usual. You start things off. The defense did its job as usual to stop the run. In the case of Brian Robinson and Tony Gibson, not really much of a factor in this game. Sure, they got some of their dirty work, the running backs in the pass catching department, especially Antonio Gibson. But Taylor Heinicke was pressured for most of the game. The defense really set the tone early and often on the Commanders' very first drive, forced a quick 3-and-out. But the 49ers, as they made their push on their own opening drive, Brock Purdy and Christian McCaffrey did solid to start. They made their first kind of mistake to open the game. Kyle Shanahan decided to go for it on 4th down, called the timeout first to draw them off. And then they still decided to go for it on 4th down. They tried to do this pitch play by Kyle Juszczyk to Christian McCaffrey. Didn't really amount to anything. They turned the ball over on down. So, I get that Kyle Shanahan wants to be aggressive, and I'm actually glad that Kyle Shanahan is finally getting aggressive with his play calling. But sometimes he can be too aggressive, if you know what I mean. He's getting a little too over aggressive with his play calling, and sometimes that can be a good and a bad thing. But here in the opening drive, it was a little bit of a bad thing. And speaking of Chase Young, I know I'm kind of jumping all over the place. He was on a pitch count to start the game, but then as the game wore on, He was already he was making a bit impact. It looked like he didn't have rust at all. And he was stuffing McCaffrey for much of the game. So the Commanders went on this long drive of ball control. But then it amounted to nothing because the 49ers defense stuffed Brian Robinson. They stuffed Antonio Gibson. And the 49ers got the ball back on downs on their right next to their end zone. And what could have been a puntable situation instead turns into a scoring one. Christian McCaffrey got them out of their end zone. And Kyle Shanahan drew up a jet screenplay for Ray McCloud. Washington could catch up to him. 7-0 lead for the 49ers. And yeah, the defense did its job yet again to force another 3-and-out. But man, less than 5 minutes ago, Jawan Jennings made a potential costly mistake for San Francisco because the Niners still deep in their own territory. And Brock Purdy throws a catchable ball for Jennings, but he just had butterfingers. He coughed that up. And interception for Washington. They got good field position, and after another dragging play, because apparently they're one of the leaders in time of possession. Even though time of possession is kind of an overrated stat. That's why we don't do stats and analytics most of the time here on Very Cold Lasagna. We're all about qualitative performance here. So anyway, Washington commands up a touchdown. Heinicke throws a solid ball to rookie Jahan Dotson, who actually has been the guy to go to for Washington for much of this game. He was the main target for Heinicke. He looks like the guy, the solid receiver behind Terry McLaurin, who, by the way, was actually been on lockdown by the secondary for most of the first half. So the Commanders were actually playing the 49ers very tough for most of the first half, keeping the ball away from Brock Purdy, and the defensive line really making it tough for him to get the ball out, and the defense really holding on strong on Christian McCaffrey. So this game really tightening up in the first half. But then you get to the second half. That is when Kyle Shanahan finally made some adjustments to break the Commanders, command them to lay down and suck his you-know-what, if you know what I mean. So Shanahan made the adjustment to at least open the second half, per se. Balance out, letting Brock Purdy throw the ball. Let him loose. And it paid off. Brock Purdy lobbed a laser beam to George Kittle. And he got a nice connection. 14-7 to start the second half. The offensive line also did a good job providing Brock Purdy time to throw to Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle on that first drive of the second half. So pretty good start to the second half for the 49ers. You couldn't ask for something better for them. And good job by the special teams to take advantage of Antonio Gibson's mini muff on the kickoff. And that allowed the defense to greatly rattle Heinicke on the quick 3-and-out. So they were in good position to, at least for the Niners, to go in and get their offense set up for what could have been another score, but unfortunately it didn't really translate to that. So much later in the third quarter, Ron Rivera really decided to get testy with the Niners defense. And with his offense still deep in their own territory, needing a fourth down, Taylor Heinicke tried his best Jimmy Garoppolo impersonation, tried to quarterback sneak, but the defense stood him up. It was later ruled by the officials that after they measured it, he was just a half yard short. So Taylor Heinicke, as he tried as he might, and we'll give him a credit is due later, he's no Jimmy G for all Jimmy G's flaws. He's no master of the quarterback sneak. So the offense for San Francisco made Rivera pay. Kyle Shanahan drew up a Purdy throw, catch and run to a wide open Kittle. No one around the area was around George Kittle. He stayed uncovered to command past the Washington defense. And here you go. The Niners suddenly running away from this one, 21-17, with less than 3 minutes left to go. But then all of a sudden, man, Taylor Heinicke, this guy keeps fighting. keeps on fighting despite the miscues. He responds right away with some really good throws to Terry McLaurin on a deep ball and a touchdown strike. And it's suddenly back to a one-score game before the quarter ends. And man, and I also noticed during that touchdown response by Heinicke, Charvarius Ward was not there to cover McLaurin because Charvarius Ward was locking down, was the one going man-to-man with Terry McLaurin, and he wasn't there on the touchdown. It was Sam Womack and Diomondre Lenoir. And I was wondering, like, I was initially a little upset by it. It's like, where was Charvarius Ward? And found out that he got concussed and he had to go to the protocol again. He was in the blue tent. Then eventually he came back. So I was like, okay, all right. It was like, that defense is a little sus, especially with Emmanuel Mosley out for the year. So it's like, you don't want to lose Charvarius Ward now. And if the pass rush can't get home, it's like, ugh. So anyway, it's now once again a one-score game. But then Nick Bosa starts to come to life. He's starting to get that pressure on Heinicke. He's really starting to hone in, and he really starts to get in on Heinicke and makes some trouble for him. He causes a fumble on him, and Jordan Willis catches it, their backup defensive lineman. And unfortunately for the 49ers, they can't capitalize on what ended up being one of two turnovers for them, for the Commanders at least, because, well, I don't know what was happening on their offense. Specifically with the case with their first turnover that was given to them, Mike McGlinchey's dumbass, because he got flagged. This was his second flag in the fourth quarter. He false started, and that backed up the 49ers, so they can't do anything on the turnover. But they managed to get a field goal, so it was 27-14. But then Heinicke made his second mistake, his second straight one, that matter, with an interception to Jimmy Ward. It was initially a pick six, but that was taken away. And I guess I can give flack for the officials because he ended up being touched. So even though it didn't really look like it, but it is what it is. So Heinicke's fumble and his interception led to the return of, oh man, Carson Wentz, the 49ers killer from last year. Yeah, big man Carson. Commander Carson coming back to the starting lineup. And if y'all remember, Carson Wentz gave, when he was a member of the Colts, gave the 49ers trouble in the rain last year. So it for those of you, might have gave you some trauma. So here it comes again. But firstly, though, the Niners couldn't capitalize on another turnover with a touchdown that could have put the game away against the Commanders. So it was 30-14. So in comes in Carson Wentz, and just like last year, gives the Niners fits on defense, and he's moving the offense with ease on hurry up. And after some challenges thrown by Kyle Shanahan, the first one was, I don't know why he threw that one when Logan Thomas, the tight end, clearly caught the ball, even though he jumbled it at the end. He took 3 steps, so that was kind of a fumble out of bounds. The second one, though, yeah, that was kind of justifiable because I think it was Curtis Samuel had the ball popped out, and it was kind of like incomplete. But then I think it's Diomondre Lenoir intercepted it, like the live ball. But I don't know why Jerome picks his nose, ruled it incomplete. And he didn't even give us the timeout back. He didn't even give us the Niners the timeout back. So that was kind of weird. So anyway, the Commanders score by giving Curtis Samuel, Carson Wentz throws it to Curtis Samuel. And then Nick Bosa, once again, comes alive in the fourth by sacking Carson Wentz on the 2-point attempt. And it's 30-20 49ers with over 5 minutes left. So it's once again getting tight. With 5 minutes left, Commanders have all 3 of the timeouts. But then Washington continues to shoot itself in the foot with the onside kick. Joey Slye doesn't even get it past 5 yards. I was like, what the fuck was that? What kind of onside kick attempt was that? That couldn't even get past 5 yards. So they get flagged for illegal touching. And then the 49ers have great field position. and then they start converting their first downs. They make Washington use up all their timeouts, so they can't stop the clock anymore. And then the Niners get to a point where they have to they get short on a third down, and then they decide to, instead of make a field goal, and keep in mind there's like over 2.5 minutes left, rather than make the field goal, Kyle Shanahan, just for shits and giggles, he decides to go for it on fourth down again, try to convert that first down at the hair goal line, and lo and behold, Brock Purdy actually converts it with George Kittle at the goal line. And they convert it. Christian McCaffrey, for all the trouble that Washington has given him, he slams the door shut on the Commanders with a stat pad touchdown, and the 49ers will go on to win it 37-20. And yeah, they're 11-4 on the season. Yeah, I think this was the toughest test Brock Purdy has faced yet, aside from, I'd say, the Bucs, even though their defense was, in terms of the defense, but yeah, this was probably the toughest test so far Brock Purdy has faced, and he impressed. He eventually, he had that trouble with the defense, because that defensive line is literally no joke. With Montez Sweat, Jonathan Allen, Chase Young, who actually, in his first game back, he was really picking it up fast. And once the second half came around, he made the plays that he needed to make with Kittle, Ayuk, McCaffrey. He really picked it up in the second half to make the throws he needed to make, and the first downs that he had to convert. So, speaking of George Kittle, he really continues to be a driving force in the offense again. He's really stepping up to the plate with Deebo Samuel out, and against the Commanders, you couldn't ask for more out of him. Going to the Commanders, though, I don't know what's going on with Taylor Heinicke, man. I think the pressure is really getting to him in terms of the mistakes and all that, because he's a good. He makes these really good throws sometimes, but the mistakes that he's been making, with the 2 fumbles against the Giants, and then the fumble and the interception in this game against the 49ers, yeesh. It's kind of unfortunate, man, because Ron Rivera, with the Commanders holding on to that 7 seed, I guess, yeah, he really doesn't really have much of a choice but to put in Carson Wentz back in. But then you really don't know what you're going to get out of Carson Wentz with the last 2 games against the Browns and especially the Cowboys, considering they won against the Eagles. But then you don't know what position the Cowboys are going to be in come week 18 against the Commanders, against Carson Wentz, who are going to be fighting for that last playoff spot. And depending on where the Eagles are with the top seed, and the Cowboys already have the 5th seed locked up, so that's not going to be much of a matter for them. So the Commanders really don't know what they have in these last 2 games with Carson Wentz, now that Taylor Heinicke's pretty much benched. So, yeesh. It's kind of, an uncertain situation at quarterback now. And last but not least, can they finally get a right tackle this offseason, man? Can they just get a right tackle? Because Mike McGlinchey's, he's so on and off. He can be good, 2 weeks, and then very, very bad most of the time. Especially penalties, man. The false starts, holding. What more? What more do you need to see that Mike McGlinchey's not that great on the offensive line? Let's get a confident right tackle. Mike McGlinchey's not the guy. I don't know, man. I really don't know. So anyway, the 49ers are 11-4. They beat the Washington Commanders 11-4. Solid win all around for them to bounce back in the second half after a tough back and forth first half against the Commanders. So now looking ahead to week 17 in Las Vegas against the Raiders on New Year's Day, there's still some things to play for, I guess, but they're going to be playing at the same time as the Vikings, who are going up to Green Bay to play the Packers as they close out the season with a 2-game road trip with the Packers and the Bears. So the Vikings are probably going to have a chance to close the door with the 2 seed, even though they're like a game ahead of the 49ers. So the Niners have to take care of their business against Derek Carr, Devontae Adams, and the Raiders, who are going to be playing against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm not aware of the results of that game quite yet, because, well, as I'm making this, they're currently playing. So anyway, the Niners, they're playing a inconsistent quarterback in Derek Carr. Their offensive line is so-so, but they still have a top receiver in Devontae Adams. Derek Carr can go off sometimes. Josh Jacobs is no joke at running back, who is going to get paid in the offseason. Max Crosby can be a wrecking ball in the defensive line, but other than that, that's pretty much it. So there will be more thoughts on the Raiders matchup in the coming days. But for now, the Niners can relish in this Christmas Eve victory against the Commanders and spread some holiday cheer on during the rest of their Christmas weekend. So anyway, those are my thoughts on the Washington Commanders win by the 49ers. And they are looking ahead to what's to come for them in this final 2 games, as they try to hope that the Vikings slip up. In one of these last 2 games so they can get the number 2 seed. If not, then Kyle Shanahan has some decisions to make in regards to these last 2 games for his team. But anyway, that's it for me on this recap of the 49ers. Let me know your thoughts on how the 49ers did against Washington in the comments below. Anyway, this is DylanLasagna of Very Cold Lasagna, and keep that lasagna very cold in the fridge with your takes on the world of sports. And until next time, peace out and Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to you all.